Hi, Chad, Versamatic. Today we're going to install a wet end kit to our E4 non-metallic metallic center pump. Out front we have examples of Versamatic genuine parts in the form of air end kit and a wet end kit. The rebuild you're going to see is accurate and man-method machine, but for video purposes, some parts of the work performed have been condensed in time. At any point during the presentation, please pause this video until you have completed any part of the process. The pump we are using in this presentation has been built new and is considerably easier to work with than a pump that has been used in a process. Additional time may be required in the preparation and separation of parts and components during the rebuild. Identifying which kit is required for your repair has become easier on newer pumps with the metal serial number tag that now indicates the wet end and air end kit information for the pump. Kit information can also be found in the service and operating manual. Versamatic genuine replacement parts, wet end and air end kits provide a bill of material of the components included in the kit. All items included in the kits are components that Versamatic recommends replacing when rebuilding a pump. The pump we are using today is an example of the ease of installation. Always consult your respective service and operating manual before performing any maintenance on your pump. Service and operating manuals include composite repair parts drawings, repair parts list, and torque specifications. Our wet side rebuild will include the following items: diaphragms, valve seats, and check balls. These are the recommended tools used with the rebuild. While the sizes may change based on the model, the type will remain the same. Torque wrench, ratchet, breaker bar, O-ring pick, sockets and/or wrenches, 1/2 inch, 1¼ inch 6-point socket, 5/32 inch socket head Allen wrench. Alright, let's get started. Today we're going to use a 3/8 drive impact gun for ease of disassembly and reassembly. First we're going to start off by removing our discharge manifold. Set aside the discharge manifold. Remove valve seats and check balls. Now remove the suction manifold. Set aside suction manifold. Remove valve seats and check balls. Now remove one outer chamber. Once we remove all outer chamber bolts, set aside the outer chamber for later reassembly. Remove the second outer chamber and set aside. Now remove the diaphragm assemblies. One diaphragm assembly will contain outer plate, diaphragm, and inner plate. The second diaphragm assembly will contain the main shaft. Versamatic shafts have wrench flats on the rod to assist in diaphragm removal and installation when performing maintenance in the field. Today we will use a vise with soft jaws. Soft jaws are utilized to ensure that the shaft is not scarred, scratched, or damaged while the shaft is clamped in the vise. Now remove the old diaphragm assembly from the main shaft. Set aside the inner diaphragm plate and outer diaphragm plate and discard the old diaphragm. Inspect the outer diaphragm plate radius for any sharp edges or damage. You can lightly sand or replace as needed. Inspect the main shaft for any scarring or scratching or damage and replace as needed. Now we're ready to install our wet end kit. Note the orientation of the diaphragm and the part numbers, material codes, Install our outer diaphragm plate flush with the diaphragm, natural bulge in. Our inner diaphragm plate with the radius towards the diaphragm. Hand tighten the diaphragm assembly to the rod and torque to factory specs. Apply light grease to the main shaft. Grease is applied to keep the items from catching, binding, or cutting while assembling components. Slide the diaphragm rod into the center of the pump. Now we're ready to install our opposite diaphragm assembly. Note the part numbers and material codes on the diaphragm itself. Install the diaphragm outer plate with the radius facing towards the diaphragm. Same thing on the inner plate. Install the inner diaphragm plate radius towards the diaphragm. When tightening the diaphragm assembly to the rod, be sure to torque both diaphragm assemblies to factory specification. Now install our outer chamber. Inspect the outer chamber for casting integrity. Inspect the machine surfaces and radius of the chamber for damage or material buildup. Scarring, scratching, or material buildup can be cleaned up using emery paper, crocus cloth, or fine sandpaper. Note the orientation of the outer chamber, the arrow facing up. Be sure to align the diaphragm into the groove of the outer chamber. Note the orientation of the air valve on the side of the pump and the outer chamber facing up. Thread in and bring all bolts snug in a cross pattern and torque to factory specifications. Once you have one outer chamber installed, shift across the opposite diaphragm assembly. Inspect the second outer chamber machine surfaces, the radius, nice round radius for the diaphragm to roll across. Inspect the integrity of the casting. Inspect the machine surface on the discharge side and suction side. Inspect the ball cages. Note the orientation of the outer chamber facing up and the air valve on the side of the pump. Begin to install all the outer chamber hardware. Once you have all the outer chamber bolts installed, tighten the outer chamber bolts in a cross pattern and torque to factory specifications. Now we're ready to install our suction check balls and valve seats. Note the orientation of the valve seat. Inspect the integrity of the suction manifold, the machine surfaces. Orientation of the manifold is based on process requirements and may be reinstalled in either direction. Be sure to hand tighten in all bolts on the suction manifold and torque in a cross pattern to factory specifications. Now we're going to install our discharge check balls and valve seats. Note the orientation of the check ball to the valve seat. Inspect the machine surfaces of our discharge manifold, nice clean sealing surface. Inspect the ball cages for any sharp edges. Orientation of the manifold is based on process requirements and may be reinstalled in either direction. Tighten the bolts down evenly and torque in a cross pattern to factory specifications.